Right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Smashing Skull Sessions. Before we kick off, a big shout out to Rising Suns Brewery, our main sponsor. Craft beer is local here in Cork City, lads. If you're ever around, check them out. Amazing beers, amazing stuff. Right, this week, lads, I'm delighted to welcome a band who just, well, a few months ago released their debut LP. This is The Depth Beneath Us, and they released their self-titled album back in December. I'd like to welcome Dan, Matt, Ryan, and Mike. Lads, thanks so much for coming on to the Smashing Skulls.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, thanks. What's up?
Now, first off, lads, I'm going to say, as a fanboy, this album fucking absolutely crushed when I heard it. It brought everything that I love about post-metal, you know. It's heavy, there's melody, there's in-between crescendos, there's softer moments, nice little melodies and guitars. Dual guitaring, it fucking has it all. So look, congrats on that album, lads. Yeah, before we go into this album, lad, before we dig deep into the album, can I ask you how you came together, how this band got together in the first place?
I guess I should probably tell the story.
Sure,
Probably 2016, 15. Danny, when did you get married? Was it 16?
I got married in 17.
17. Okay, so 2017. Yeah. I was off for a little bit there. Okay, so I had not played in a band in a long time and was writing music and decided to reach out to Danny and Wes, who I played in bands with in the past, 10 years ago plus. And we started jamming and we just, wanted more people. We wanted a third guitar player and we wanted a bass player. And so I reached out to Ryan and was like, hey, do you want to get together and jam? And he was like, no. I was like, okay, well, here's a track. Here's a demo of like what I have in mind. And it's the same track that I had sent Danny and I had sent Wes and was like, do you guys want to get together and play stuff like this? And then 5 minutes after sending it to Ryan was like, yeah, let's get together and jam. Excellent. And then I think maybe 2-3 months after him coming to practices and jamming and learning the couple of tunes we had and continue writing, then Matt came by and I think he was down for maybe like 1 or 2 practices just listening, and then got together and learned everything, and it's kind of been all of us ever since.
Well, like you just mentioned, like you all sort of live within close enough proximity to each other, don't you? I mean, it made life a lot easier to get together to jam and all that,
And the whole idea behind all of this too is, I mean, we're all, 5 individuals with our own lives, our own responsibilities, our own jobs and everything like that. So with this being the digital age, if somebody has an idea, you can lay it down and you can email it to somebody. You can work on things that way. If we're writing an idea, you can come to practice, and at that point we can record what you're doing. And if you're not at practice the next week, that's fine. We can just play what we call like a robo track. Like it's just a track that you get to play along to, and we just work from there.
And did this idea of technology taking over and being able to send files to and from each other, did the whole COVID thing instigate that, or was that something you were doing even way before that?
We were doing that before that.
Before COVID.
It's something that we've been doing all along. The COVID, by the time COVID hit, all of these songs for the album had already been written for a couple of years, so it was really just a waiting game at that point.
Okay. I did notice that you had songs written from back in 2017, 2018 already, hadn't you?
Yeah, most of the album, I think the album was pretty much written by 2019, and we had a couple of false starts to whether we were going to record it ourselves or to hire out the recording and mixing and stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2022 that we could all get back into a room together, and by that point we had decided, we lost access to our original practice space. And so in order to kind of get the best drum recording sound, we decided to go into a studio. But I mean, prior to that, it was just all, a waiting game. And in the meantime, we had kind of sent files back and forth. But that's just kind of how it is.
Is that tough going? Like, is it, you have the material since 2017, 2018 sitting on it for so fucking long? Like, did you get to the stage where would this ever see the light of day?
Yeah, there were definitely points where we're getting ready to record the debut album, and we're already kind of we're already on to the next batch of material.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I guess we have to finish this stuff first.
Around the same time, Wes had his daughter a few years before I did, but I had kids. I had my first son in 2019, so I kind of learned a new a new version of patience, I guess you could say, just by having a child. So I mean, it still sucked to sit on those songs for so
Yeah.
long, but we had the plan the whole time. Like the whole idea was we wanted to get together because I mean we're all in our late 30s and 40s, and the whole plan was just to finally. Not saying that we hadn't made good music in the past, but we just wanted to make the best album possible
Yeah.
at this point in our lives, and I think we definitely set out to achieve that and did a pretty good job. So we're
Well, I
definitely
suppose,
working on the second one now.
yeah, I suppose it's testament to the fact that this is a great album, but the fact that you sat in it for so long, never really changed it. You were always happy with what you had. I mean, and it shows. Like, I mean, it's such. I won't say
Yeah.
polished because polished it is polished, but not polished in the sense that it lacks any bit of raw energy. Like, but it's so well complete. It sounds complete. Do you know what I mean?
It's it's polished because we play to a click track.
It helps. It certainly helps.
It definitely helps. I mean, I practice to it on my own too, but yeah, I mean that's a huge part of it. But yeah, knowing the songs in and out really well as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, even when COVID hit, we kind of sat on the stuff, and I don't think we even practiced. We actually Zoomed just to hang out at times,
Yeah.
but I don't think we practiced for maybe 2020. I don't even know. 2021 was maybe the first time we got together. So I mean, not only did we sit on the songs, we also then had to sit and not necessarily even play them together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably about 2 years between practices
Right.
with everybody there.
Brilliant. No, I know you already touched on it there earlier, Mike, and I mentioned it earlier as well. Having three guitarists, right? Was that always the plan, or is it something that just came about within this group? And what's the reason behind it, do you think?
I've always been intrigued with three guitarists. There was a band years and years ago. Danny and I both really enjoy. Wes, our drummer, enjoys trios, the Receiving End of Sirens.
Okay.
I'm pretty positive that was one of the first bands that I saw that had three guitarists. They also had three singers.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they were just absolutely amazing, blew me away. And I think that was the first time where I was like, oh, wow, like three guitars can add a dynamic.
Yeah.
You can, even if you just want to do something where you've got, harmonies going on, but then something else is even doing something different melodically. Like it was always my idea to have three guitar players.
Okay.
And you always find somebody else to be
Yeah.
in there. So, yeah.
Ryan, what about you being a bass guitarist? Like, I mean, did three guitarists potentially sort of worry you at all? Or were you happy to have three of them fucking laying into it when you're trying to get up over them?
No, it didn't bother me at all. There's a band called Ocean Size that had
Yeah.
three guitars.
Yeah.
Me and Matt really love those guys. So I kind of figured where my home was and what I could add to the music and not getting anybody's way.
Exactly, yeah. Come here. Again, I was on your Bandcamp page there recently, and I just want to quote back something that you had written on it there on your Bandcamp page. In the age of streaming, the depth beneath us believes in long play format and has created an experience that respects you and rewards your attention. Right? Now, I loved everything about that comment, lads, because I don't music has just become so fucking throwaway lately with all the streaming devices. People don't give an album a chance.
Yep.
Everything is, you can fucking think any album you want, it's there for you. You give it a listen, toss it aside, it's digital, no one sees it again. And it's forgotten about, which is a fucking shame, especially for such great albums. And is that what you're getting at?
That is
comment, yeah?
That's exactly right. And I think the most interesting thing about that with this album is that the songs, they weren't just a collection of songs. They were actually written in the order in which they appear on the album.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, it was kind of conceived as a full experience.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Mike?
Yes, the songs were written in that order, but like the stuff that I find funny was like the intro to the album. Like that was just, hey guys, let's have something that we can warm up to.
Okay.
Type of thing. And it just to get like, the juices flowing and just kind of warm everything up to get into a song. But yeah, I mean, like the album was written exactly in that order. I mean, we started the first song, so Loaded to the Gun Walls, and then I don't even think we were halfway through that song, and we were like, let's do something just to warm up every practice, and that became the intro. So Yeah, long format. I think about it all the time, and especially recently. Like I miss the days of you buy an album because you hear a song on the radio, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then especially because you don't have streaming and stuff, you don't have all the other devices to take your attention away. You get to then listen to the album. You discover stuff. Like I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Like I can remember being probably like 12, Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and Infant Sadness came out. You know, I bought that for the typical songs, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, like those types of things. But then as a child, like that was the first time I like ever had a CD that was 2 discs. And listening to that album in its entirety, like listening to it even now, like I love it because it takes me back to that of learning and discovering all these other songs on this album where the album is an experience, you know, and exactly that. Like it's great to have albums that learning them and listening to them front to back, like it does make an experience, you know. I'm somebody who I don't necessarily like to hit shuffle. Like I don't necessarily stream and stuff. Like I like to pick a disc. I like to listen to it all the way through before I move on to something else. I mean, there's a time and place for shuffle.
I shuffle my playlist every day.
Do you, Dan? Yeah.
But I listen to albums too. I mean, it's not totally not similar to our music at all. But I just listened to Killer Mike is a rapper from Atlanta. He's also one half of Run the Jewels. I don't know if you're into hip hop or anything, but
no.
Killer Mike's new album, Michael. I just listened to that in its entirety. And that was incredible. So I do listen to albums, but I also have a playlist with thousands and thousands of songs, and I mostly just shuffle it. So, I mean,
Well, I find as well, actually, if I'm driving, we'll say, I'll shuffle the music because you're not as clued in as you would be normally. And, you know, a track will catch your attention every now and then, whatever the case may be. But like you mentioned, Mike, at home, like, I mean, I don't know, age groups, I'm late 40s, right? I remember the days of going into the city, buying a CD, going home, up to the bedroom, CD on the bed, inlay card out, reading through every fucking track, learning every single lyric, you know. Those days are gone, like, aren't they? You know, it's a shame, like.
And I mean, go ahead, Matt.
No, it's funny because, you know, some of the most beloved music in my collection is CDs that I found just kind of browsing aisles, and, you know, an album cover catches my eye, and then I take it home and I'm like, oh, I know one of those songs from the radio, and the rest of the album, you know, is just amazing and deep, and it's so layered. And I think the one that I'm thinking of is Fantastic Planet by Failure, which I think a lot of people probably know now, but at the time in the 90s, is very, very underground. But to find that and to kind of have that be your own thing, your own discovery was incredible.
Would you agree, Ryan? Would you have been a person who took time out and listened to an album back?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you care to elaborate?
I don't really have
Ryan's the quiet one.
Yeah.
He doesn't say much. And I always try and, you know, egg him on, get him going.
So it's not working for me anyway.
What's that?
I was trying as well, but obviously it's not working.
Yeah.
Right. I can only try.
We can move on.
Look, Joe, actually, since we're talking about this type of thing, let's get on to your vinyl release, because, as I said, the album was dropped. Actually, before we even get to that, something else that just cropped into my mind today, actually, when I was listening to this album. And, you know, people always have their album of the year lists and highlights of the year and whatever else. To drop an album in December doesn't give that album the opportunity, I think, to make it into album of the year lists.
Right,
sure.
Because I think this deserved to be in an awful lot of them. It wasn't in mine, obviously, because I was late to it as well. December release date, was there any reason for that, or is it just the only time you could get it out there?
Honestly,
we were probably so anxious.
I think we were just we were ready to get it out there. And to be honest, coming from where we were, we had no idea if anybody would ever even listen to this album. We had no idea of the marketing or any of that stuff going into the recording of it. So it was really just you know, pick a date, and then we kind of worked backwards from that as far as releasing singles goes. Wasn't even thinking at all about, you know, possibly getting on end of year lists. That was the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah. Fair point. But as I said, it did deserve to be on them. I will say that much, though.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely did.
Matt did all the marketing, so as far as the release date, I don't think there was anything but like, hey, this is when we're going to release it.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, that's the hardworking, behind the scenes genius guy of it all. I got kids. So I say that all the
front
time.
and center, Matt, is it?
I don't know.
Well, Matt has
But-
kids
but-
too. They're just older.
Yeah.
Mine are young.
I'm able to get away a little more.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no putting them to bed, Matt. That's the difference.
Right.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Sure.
But again, like we talked about the end of the year list and all that, like the likes of Where Post Rock Dwells, then lads and stuff like that for putting their music out there. You dealt with Ronnie, obviously, from Where Post Rock Dwells.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make a difference for you as a band?
It made a huge difference. In fact, we have to go back a little bit further. Over the summer, when we were just starting to think about the release, I had some conversations with Eric from the band Hero Way, and he was incredibly gracious and thoughtful with his responses. And one of the things that he suggested was trying to get us connected with some of the larger post-rock channels, implying Where Post Rock Dwells.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Ronnie, and he took a listen to the album. He had a chance to hear it a little bit early. Said he loved it, and was from that point on and just incredibly helpful, getting us premiered on his channel, put our banner on his homepage.
Yeah. It does matter though, doesn't it? That type of thing.
Absolutely.
It's nice to know there's still people out there that care.
Well, that's it. Absolutely, that's it, Dan.
It's
yeah,
hard to
right.
get people to listen to music,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not easy, to get as a band like this market, like this post scene, is flooded in bands. Like there's no two ways about that. There's so much stuff out there. You could be forever delving and just getting down to trying to get to the bottom of it. It's a bottomless pit of music.
Yeah.
So to get any traction at all through the likes of Where Post Rock Dwells must be a big bonus, I think, for any band.
I think anything like that is a big shock when somebody appreciated it enough to kind of get behind it and to help push it out there. It's never expected, but it's always appreciated,
Yeah. And I suppose, look, I wanted to talk about the vinyl anyway. The vinyl only came out, how long ago, lads? A few weeks ago, maybe?
We just received it middle of June, so just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, and was that always going to be on the plan as well, to drop a vinyl press of it?
No, it was not. That actually came about pretty late in the game. It was I think it was right before we put up the pre-orders on Bandcamp. We finally decided to go ahead with a vinyl release, so that would have been early September.
Okay.
And now at that point, we had no idea if there was going to be any interest in it at all. So somebody had recommended we look into doing crowdfunding for vinyl. So that was the route we went with it. And as a result of leaving the pre-order window open probably a few months longer than typical, that was why everything kind of with delay times and everything. That's how we ended up in June getting the vinyl. But we got it, and it looks and sounds great. And the people that have received it, they seem to love it.
Yeah, that's the credit to you, lads. I mean, trying to get vinyl pressed at this stage is near impossible. Like the waiting times are fucking scandalous. Like,
absolutely.
And again, to have to crowdfund it and try and do it all yourselves, the whole DIY aspect of it all, is amazing. Like, but was it done because through demand? So did you think that we better do it, or was it a personal thing that you like vinyl yourselves?
Matt and I talked about vinyl for quite some time. And both of us, I love sitting down, touching back on listening to albums, like sitting down with the vinyl, and listening to an album front to back. You get done the side, you got to go over and flip it, those types of things. So we always talked about, I would like to do a vinyl. Yeah. And then I think once things were kind of up there, Matt was crunching numbers all the time and was like, I think we can do it. I think we can pull this off.
Very good. I want to talk about the name of the title of the album, but it being self-titled, right? I'm just curious to see why bands do that and why they don't come up with a title for it. Is there any particular reason for that?
I think I can answer this one, at least from my perspective. Again, with COVID and with sitting on these songs for as long as we did, and nobody knowing who we were initially, there was no guarantee that we were ever going to make another album. And this collection of songs seemed like the most the most basic statement of who the band was. So why not self-title it?
Yeah, well, that makes sense, actually. That makes sense, Matt. Yeah, it does. Fair play. Well, look, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to have listened to some of your music. Guys, anyone who hasn't heard us yet, you're in for a fucking treat. Anyone who already has and are waiting on your vinyl, you just have to wait. It's on the way, no doubt. I decided to pick track. The track I picked was EOS, lads. Here it is. Have a listen, see what you think of this. Right, guys, so there you have it. That is the track EOS from The Depth Beneath Us' debut album and self-titled album. Be sure to check it out on Bandcamp, guys. I'm telling you, it is a fantastic record if you haven't already. Right, guys, as we're on about this record, the concept and story, whoever wants to take that on, can you give us a bit of insight?
Of the album itself,
I was waiting for Ryan there to come in.
Yeah, it's all you, Ryan. You know the whole story.
I guess I'll chime in on some of this. I mean, most of it like, so the funny thing is that track EOS, like that was actually a song that the original concept of the song, I think it's still on YouTube. I don't know if it's up there, but that was the track that I used to get everybody onto the project.
Oh, nice.
And obviously it's changed, as far as the song goes. I don't know how much of a story there really is with stuff other than just us kind of having song ideas and things. I mean, I can say sometimes I do like a weird thing when I'm inspired to write. I'll like watch YouTube videos of things that kind of freak me out. Like I'm fascinated by shipwrecks, like underwater shipwrecks. But at the same point too, I'm totally creeped out by the depth and the darkness of like what would happen down there. So sometimes putting myself in that kind of uncomfortable zone where I'm like fascinated by something, but also kind of terrified at the same time, like just having these different types of emotions, and then just pick up the guitar.
Very good. So I suppose that's where the band name came from initially. So is it that idea?
Sort of.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it has meaning for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I've got an underwater adventure just for you.
Perfect.
There's this ship called the Titanic. Anyways, now the Depth Beneath Us is like, I'm a big reader, so I've always had like this. It's an idea that I tell myself someday I'm gonna write like some novel or some fucking bullshit like that. I mean, I may or may not, but it's just kind of, the name kind of came from that. I don't know.
Okay.
I just I pieced the words together and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And I think it was like we had depth was like plural or something. And then Matt's wife was like, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make sense. And then we just made it depth. It's not really that cool of a story, but
it was one of those things where we had a show coming up and we needed a name.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure, that too.
And we do the same thing we always do. We collaborated. Somebody started something, and it just spitballed and just kept going, and we eventually came up with something.
Just a brainstorming exercise, Mike, was it basically?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And on that, I kept saying the depth. I couldn't not say the depths beneath us. I had
it
to
doesn't
fucking
roll
train
off the
myself
tongue
to
at
drop the S. Yeah,
I have a hard time saying it every time.
I guess we were in the same boat then, man, because I was like, ooh, the depths beneath us. And then I guess it does sound really weird now that I think about it. But
I swear, we're all overthinking, it just sounds completely
right,
wrong.
sure.
Yeah. And the artwork that came along with this album then, guys, whether there's a story or not to it, how did you pick it even?
I mean, it's really, we wanted something to kind of go along with the whole self-titled aspect of it. We wanted something that was minimal.
Yeah.
And so we took, it was kind of like an evolution of what our band logo was at the time. And I've been a fan of Rob Sheridan, who's a graphic artist. He was the art director for Nine Inch Nails for many years, and he does a lot of glitch art. And so I had been like, learning a lot of stuff, a lot of techniques from him. So it was just it was a kind of like an exercise of putting that to use and seeing what we could make of it, and while still looking for something that would be abstract enough to kind of let people come up with their own interpretation while listening to the music.
All right, very good, very good. The album as a whole, now when you look back at it, lads, I mean, it is around, in theory, since 2018. Are you happy with everything that is sitting on that vinyl record behind you there, Mike? Are you happy with the final product?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always wish I would have played like my solo a little bit better, but whatever.
At some point,
it's in the interlude. No one cares about the interlude.
Yep.
So
yeah. I care. Okay, Dan. I care.
Thank you.
I care too. But maybe someone listening will care. Go listen to that solo and let me know what you think.
I'll come back to you.
If I should go back in and redo that shit or not.
I think it's too late to redo it.
Yeah, I know. Oh well. I'll nail it on the next one.
You mentioned as well earlier, lads, that you're actually even writing new material. You sort of mentioned it at the beginning there. Obviously you're happy where you are at the moment as a band. So obviously the next step is there will be a second album, like I take it, lads. Yeah.
We're a couple of songs deep into writing for the next album. I think the one mandate that we gave ourselves was that we'd like it to be heavier than the first while still keeping the sense of dynamics that we have throughout the first album. So that's a kind of careful balance to hit. But the first couple of songs seem to be going in that direction.
Yeah, the first song, I really like the first song a lot. It's one of my favorite things we've written so far.
In fact, on that point, like this is something that we've just started to promote. This is totally optional, but if people wanted to follow along with us, we're actually putting some demo clips of the new material up. We just started a Patreon page where people can, they can listen along as the next album is being written. Excellent. Totally optional.
Brilliant. Mike, anything to add to that? New material.
I'm along for the ride. Like I love it. I love writing music. Whether it's heavier or whatever. I'm just happy playing music with these guys. I enjoy it. It's fun. I think as far as my thoughts go, the same thing as like the last album. I'm just here to make a good album. I'm utterly humble and so unbelievably shocked that anybody even wants to talk to us, let alone listen to the music. I'm here to do it. Like I'm just on cloud nine with it all, and I'm absolutely happy to be writing it and moving along.
Brilliant.
And I think we found a very good balance between our personal lives and being able to do this.
Yeah. That's not easy though, Mike. I mean, Dan, you mentioned young kids, as others with the kids in their teenage years or whatever. Work commitments. It's full on, I'm guessing.
It's all on it's on a razor's edge to keep it together, but we've been able to do it so far, and hopefully that continues for as long as it can.
And like you have all been together from day one, lads, as a band. There has been a change in personnel at any stage
since we formed. It's been these five people.
Amazing, brilliant stuff, guys. Come here. Look, influences. Musically, stuff that you would have listened to in the past that you brought forward through this album. Is there bands that sort of spring to mind? I'll go through each one of you for this if you don't mind.
Sure.
Dan, would you kick off, man?
Yeah, sure. There's a band that Mike mentioned earlier. Mike and I actually went to high school together his senior year. I think that's when you first came to our town in Pennsylvania, right? Sometime after that, the band, The Receiving End of Sirens, put out their first album. It's called Between the Heart and the Synapse. And as far as albums go, jumping back to that album will probably influence everything I write for the rest of my life. It's incredible. As well as around the same time, Circa Survive's initial album, Juterna, that will probably influence a lot of things that I write. I mean, now at this point in my life, I'm really into a lot of metal, and I'm getting back into like the 80s synthwave stuff that's going on, being an 80s child that I am.
Yeah.
But those two bands, Circa Survive and The Receiving End of Sirens, as far as this type of music goes, is definitely will influence everything I write for sure.
Yeah.
And just, like I said, just those two initial albums from those bands are just phenomenal from front to back, in my opinion. That's me, at least for our type of music.
Perfect.
A whole different thing.
Matt, how do you assess it all?
Well, I mean, I think the thing is we each have such different influences, right? So, I mean, I do listen to a lot of post rock, but I wouldn't say it's the main thing that I listen to either. Some of my favorite bands are Carnival, Ocean Size, which I know Ryan mentioned, and that's the connection there is that we actually reached out to Steve DeRose, their old guitarist, to mix our record, and was just amazed when he could mix for us. Those would be probably two of my main influences. I lean more towards like the progressive rock kind of spectrum.
How about yourself, Ryan? What are you the same as Matt?
Yeah, pretty much Ocean Size, Carnival. I like a little bit more metal than I think Matt, though.
Yeah,
Monuments.
we're the metal guys.
Yeah. Can you drop us a few metal bands, Ryan? What stuff you be talking?
Thornhill. The Dark Pool is a fantastic album.
Okay.
Monuments. You ever hear of Monuments?
I did actually. Yeah, I did. Nice.
Really like
Architects.
What was it? The Contortionist?
Yeah. Oh, the Contortionist.
Oh yeah. Look at Great call.
Really good.
Like a lot of death metal, like Black Dahlia Murder.
Mhm.
That's when, yeah, that's
Every
like
Time I
black
Die.
metal. Every Time I Die is more like hardcore metal. Yeah, Every Time I Die is probably my favorite band of all time, but they're a little more like hardcore metal. They just
Yeah.
broke up. I don't want to talk about it.
Source of it. Right.
We go straight to Mike. So Mike, help Dan out here. Let him have his
Um,
moment.
So for me, I think whatever I'm listening to, I'm a combination of everybody. Like, so I agree. Like the Receiving End of Sirens, Circa Survive, their first albums, Casey Crescenzo, if I'm even saying that correctly.
Yeah, I know. So hard to say.
Yeah, from the Receiving End of Sirens, he went on to do a project called The Deer Hunter. It's like Dear John, Dear. That's a huge influence to me. They're absolutely amazing band.
Yeah.
They have 3 guitar players and sometimes switch off and do keys.
Yeah.
Even the stuff like Ocean Size and Carnival, like I didn't get into them until the past couple of years. Thankfully, Matt and Ryan got me into them, and they've been on repeat, just any of their albums constantly. So I feel like that's influencing way more of like what I'm writing nowadays and my choices of stuff. But I mean, as far as the first album, I mean, it's like Caspian was probably the band that really like got to me. Like, if these trees could talk and bands like that, like a friend of mine introduced me to a lot of them 10 years ago, and in all honesty, he gave me like, his hard drive. I copied a bunch of music and I sat on it. I just, at that time in my life, I didn't have the time to listen to albums, and it wasn't until probably about 2015 2016 I had a job where I could listen to music all day, and I started listening to music again and a lot of albums. And at some point when I found Caspian, I was like, oh my gosh, like are you kidding me? So that really inspired me a lot on the first album, and a lot with the idea of this project. It was one of those awakenings where I again just kind of have blinders on as far as my musical stuff was going on. There was a time in my life where I didn't pick up the guitar. I just didn't listen to music as much, jobs and other stuff going on in my life. And when I found them, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's this post-rock thing. There's bands out there that don't have singers, that are just these like soundtracks to what's going on in your daily routine. I was like, this is amazing. So that stuff really kind of pushed me towards a lot of this. But I mean, even like the Mars Volta, like that's something that absolutely blows me away every time. And so all of the stuff, anything that I've listened to that's influenced my playing and learning of the instrument to what I listen to nowadays is going to influence anything I'm writing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear there's such a broad spectrum of taste. I know you're even influencing each other, like, which is great to see. Sorry, Dan, go on, I caught you there.
I just want to point out that Mike was in a successful Mars Volta cover band for a small amount of time, and it was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
And anybody listening that knows Mars Volta, that is not fucking easy to do. And Mike was part of a group that pulled it off, so he knows what he's talking about there. It was awesome.
That's a whole other story for another day.
How long ago was that? Just out of curiosity, Mike. How long ago were you talking?
That was before COVID, right?
Yeah.
It had to have been.
In 2019, as we were playing our first show and we were planning on doing this album, a friend of mine who loves the Mars Volta, Aaron, he's a fantastic singer, and he reached out, I think, to you, Danny, and asked if you would do it, and I think you said no.
I couldn't. Kids, man.
Yeah. And then so he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to do a Mars Volta tribute band for a Halloween show?" And this was like in August that he reached out to me and was like, hey, we're going to learn these, I think like 6 songs. Like I couldn't even remember them if you tried to ask me to play any of them today. But it was sitting down and doing homework every night of learning these songs. And we did one show on Halloween at a local venue. It was a lot of fun. It really was. I think there's YouTube clips of it. Aaron's a phenomenal singer. Everybody in that band is all phenomenal musicians, and it was a ton of fun. And then we continued doing it with the idea of like just doing one-off shows here and there, and then COVID happened. And then after like, I mean, it's not like
destroys everything.
I think like a year or 2 into COVID, I think Mars Volta got back together. And it's funny because Josh Nesmith, who did our video for the Contempus, he was the drummer in that band. And it was just funny like seeing him, and I was like, oh, I guess we're not going to do a Mars Volta tribute band anymore if the Mars Volta's back together. What's the point of that? Like, so
They fucking destroyed everything.
Yeah. But that was nice because it also pushed me. Like, I mean, as much as I love the music, like there's a fine line for myself of loving the music and learning music. Like, I don't sometimes like to always learn people's songs because it kind of pulls away that mystery of like, what are they doing? How are they doing it? So it was really kind of a nice thing to learn some stuff and push myself is the way that I used that. And that was fun.
Yeah. Like from a listener's perspective, for me anyway, I mentioned to you before we started recording that If These Trees Could Talk would have been a huge, huge influence on me musically over the last, 10, 15 years, whatever, since I got into post music. Well, since Bones of a Dying World and since they sort of dropped off the edge of the fucking earth, I've heard nothing from them. But this album is probably the first album that I've ever heard that has been anywhere close to what they were putting out. And I say this with all the greatest of respect, as you have your own sound and everything else is yours. But this album could easily be their next album, if you know what I mean. It's
wow, that's incredible.
Thank you. I take it as a compliment.
That's one of the
and it's meant as a compliment, guys. It really is.
Thank you.
So what's next for the band Solas? I know obviously you're going to record. What about going live or touring? Is there any talk at all?
Yeah, I think at this point in our lives with kids and families, I think the point of this project was always to make albums more so than play shows and tour. Yeah. I mean, like we're open to doing a show here and there, but it's a lot of a time commitment to get ready for a show, especially the way we want to do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think if we just focus on writing the best albums we can and seeing what opportunities come from that, that's probably, that makes more sense. Perfect. Lets us focus on the things that we're good at.
There's certain like, I mean, like I'm always open to do shows like with enough advance notice. It's just, like he was saying, my kids are young right now. There's different gear that I would like to have before we would play live again as well. I'm the only one that uses an amp still. These guys use like awesome modulators and stuff like that I don't have the money for quite yet, but I want to get to that point eventually. But yeah, I'm always open to shows. I mean, that'd be great. I just, around here, our area of Pennsylvania is a really good hub if you want to get to places like, New York City, Baltimore, Washington, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, stuff like that. But our particular city there's not really much of a niche for us, I guess. I mean, there's a scene, but it's not like, it's not really for us, I guess. Okay. I would say. I don't know. There are some great venues around here though.
There's some really cool venues and they pull in some good shows and stuff, but like our music, like it'd be better off to try to either go to another city and jump on a show with a different band or like host a show here full of those bands. But then of course the question is like, how much of a crowd will we pull out and those types of things. And also to touch on the whole show thing too, like what Matt was saying, like if we're not focused on shows, we're going to be focused on writing. But once we have a show, like in my head, like just the way that it works for me is like I go into show mode. I go into everything I'm prepping is for the show. Like where I'm not going to sit there and be like, hey, let's run the new song. It's going to be like, okay, let's run the set. All right, ready? Let's run the set again.
The new song is going to be part of the set. If we're doing a show, we're playing that newest one. Sorry.
Yes, and that's fine too. But my mind goes away from the writing and taking the time, but it goes to preparing for the show because just like Matt said, I mean, it's a thing where we want to put on a show.
Exactly.
Worry about things, in that aspect.
Yeah. But I suppose if touring isn't realistic, is the likes of a one-off festival something that you would possibly look into maybe even next year? Let's be realistic; it's nothing's going to happen this year. Next year, if a festival came along and said, "Guys, will you come along?"
Look, I'm not going to rule it out. It's going to take a lot of convincing. It's going to take convincing everybody and also myself. But I mean, I'm not going to rule anything out.
See, unfortunately, I hope I'm all right saying this. We live in a country run by greedy capitalists that demand that we work constantly and spend all of our waking hours just slaving away for the man.
Yes.
And really, I feel like people should be, especially if they want to shove AI down our throats, you know what? Have AI do my job. Don't have AI make songs and make art. Have it do my accounting job that I have to go to every single day and then have the government just pay me so I can make music with my friends and create things that people really love. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it.
I love your thought pattern, Dan. I fucking love it.
But suffice it to say, if I didn't have to go to work all the time and then come home and I love my family obviously, but that takes my time after work. But if there wasn't so much work involved, we could do something like that. Unfortunately,
I mean, also to touch on what Danny said, anyways, though. I mean, I don't think if somebody came to us with enough notice, I mean, we just have to work out the logistics.
Okay,
that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that is because post festival, which is coming up in August, I think. Yeah. Which, if you see the lineup for that, like, I mean, ye fit the bill fucking perfectly, lads.
It's an incredible lineup, and thank you.
Where is this?
Yeah, I think it's in Indianapolis.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it is, and I just think you're made for it, lads. And I'd love to see someone like you. I think it would do justice would be served, lads, if you were there next year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to drop that whole idea, and hopefully, you guys at Post Festival are listening in, and they will.
That'd be great.
In contact, right, lads. 3 questions I gave you last week there, just for a bit of fun to wrap up the show. I'm going to ask you all individually. So, Ryan, you're going to be playing a part in this one. So, look, lads, I'm going to kick off. We go left, right. So, Dan, I'm going to kick off with you there. What track would you like to do a cover version of yourself, as a band and yourself, whichever way?
Any track,
any genre, any time.
Oh man, see, sorry, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm just trying to think of something that'd be good with like 3 guitars. Any receiving end of Siren song would be awesome for me. I don't know that anybody would really notice that, but man, I don't know. You know what? I like to harmonize guitars a lot, and I think we would pull some of it off. I think a Boston song would be cool.
Okay.
Like Long Time Foreplay into I don't know, like More Than a Feeling or something. Just have like one rhythm, just like laying down like the low end, the rhythm part of the guitar, and then like the other 2 guys harmonize those leads, because Boston harmonizes everything. Something from Boston. That's my answer.
Great answer. Great answer, Dan. We'll take that one. Matt?
So I thought about this, right? And I think I would say Judith by A Perfect Circle, not for any particular reason other than the fact that people on Instagram have commented that our song Contempest, like the 15-second clip of it that they heard.
Okay.
Several people have said, "Oh, that sounds like A Perfect Circle." So hey, why not do the song?
Nice one. Ryan, talk to me. What would you think?
I said this one before. Making Plans for Nigel.
Oh yeah. Very, very different. Very left field. I like it.
Yeah. I'd like to see what we could do with something like that. A song like that.
Great answer, Ryan. I fucking love it, man. Mike?
I've thought about this answer. I really, truly don't have an answer, because part of me goes like, okay, do you want to break down something for composition? So with 3 guitar players and everything like that, like part of me wants to be like Chicago, something that has a horn section, something that could, you could really do a lot with. And then other parts of me are like, just go like straight up rock and roll, something that influences you. Like whether you want to do something classic, like Tears for Fear, and do like Shout, or just something from the 80s that has a hook or something. Like it's a very difficult thing. Like, and for all 5 of us to agree on a cover, that would be difficult on itself by that.
Have you at any stage during rehearsal so lads got together and jammed something from somebody else just for shits and giggles, as no?
Not the ones that I've been to.
Yeah, it doesn't get like that very often. Ryan usually start in with a bass line, and then sometimes we'll pick it up. But
you're playing Wolfpack that one day.
Yeah,
I love that line.
Yeah, Ryan will sometimes play like a bass line, be like, "Who is it?" And we'll be like, "I don't know, what is it?" And then sometimes you'll recognize it, sometimes you won't.
Very good. Right, that second question: what movie or series would you like to hear "The Depth Beneath Us" track played on?
We're going circling back to me.
We start again, Dan. We go sweet.
Okay, I thought about this a lot. One of my favorite movies of all time is called Heat, by Michael Mann directed. It's like Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. And he Michael Mann, along with another woman, co-authored the sequel to it, and they're supposed to make a movie at some point. Michael Mann's like 81 years old, so may he live forever, but I don't know if he'll have time to do it. But if that movie ever gets made, Heat 2, somewhere in there, that'd be awesome.
Nice one. Good
The
call.
original,
Great call.
absolutely one of my favorites.
Great film, actually. That's a fucking classic. Yeah.
I know, so good.
How old is that, by the way, Dan? How long ago was that film made, do you think?
I want
mid-90s.
no later than 95. I think 94.
I'm pretty sure the movie was 95.
Wow.
All right.
Jeez.
I think 94 too. We'll have to look that up. But it's phenomenal.
It is. We're showing our age here, lads.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right. Matt, same question to you. What movie series?
All right. Again, I thought about this a bit. One of my favorite movies is Shaun of the Dead. I love the horror comedy.
Oh, yeah.
I love Edgar Wright. And I think
he's a genius.
any movie that he does would be excellent because of how he incorporates music into whatever he does. It's so rhythmic, the soundtrack that he chooses. So I think that would be a great choice.
Great call again. Fucking nice one. That's the first I've heard that now. Ryan?
You said
Are you a movie buff?
TV series?
Movie or TV?
Yeah, The Boys for TV.
That'd be cool.
I'd love to hear one of our songs on that. And Hot Fuzz. I like Hot Fuzz more than Shaun of the Dead.
That's fair.
Dude, Hot Fuzz is probably as far as like that that's pairing of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and then Edgar Wright's director. Yeah, Hot Fuzz probably takes the cake.
Great call, Ryan. Yeah. And Mike, wrap that one up there for us.
So I'll just go. I'd be happy with it on anything. As far as it goes, I'd love to see. As crazy as it, I'd shoot for the moon and go like, put it on a Marvel or put it on Star Wars, putting on a big franchise. Somebody actually, and this was cool. That again, the power of the internet. Somebody actually put together their own like fan Spider-Man trailer and used our song Contempest, and I was absolutely blown away. Yeah, it was just randomly. I think Matt found it and like sent it to us, and I was like, oh my god, this is just ridiculous that somebody put together this trailer, their own fan made thing, and then used our song, and like the way they clipped stuff together to different parts of the song. It was really cool. It was very cool to see it.
Have you watched it a few times? Of course
I think I've watched it twice, maybe 3 times.
I think I watched it once, and I shared it with him, and so I saw it a couple of times.
Yeah,
I watched it once when you sent it to me. We watched it once as a group, and I think I showed somebody else.
And share to everybody on your friends, your friends group. Yeah, right, lads. Name a bucket list band that you would like to play support or guest to.
Ocean's Eyes.
Ocean's Eyes.
May they live forever.
Yeah.
Is there 3 Ocean's Eyes already? So there,
yeah.
Well, I mean, like I think here, if we're gonna go out of order,
it's fine.
I think, I mean, Caspian. Obviously, if we're going post rock, like it would be just an honor to be able to share a stage with them. But I mean, for me personally, I would have to say Carnival. I just watched. I think just earlier today they uploaded a documentary of their tour recently with the Ocean. And so, I mean, you've got post metal there. So obviously they're open to that kind of thing, and it'll be an honor.
Nice
right. So thanks.
Very good. Dan, last word too, boy.
Yeah. I mean, trios would be cool. The 2 bands I'd want to open for are both defunct now.
That's
okay. The Deer, but like Mike said, like he mentioned Casey, who was part of Trios, formed the Deer Hunter, and those guys, I mean, they make albums that sound like entire musicals. So I mean, I would love to open for them. That'd be cool. And Carnival would be awesome too. I mean, like one of the most beautiful vocalists in the world in that band. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting, lads. Great call. Great choices. Really fucking great choices there. That's all my questions, lads. That's everything I have for you. I suppose everybody else who's listening in, lads, this album, self-titled, The Depth Beneath Us, as I mentioned earlier, if anyone is into that sort of genre of post-metal and that sort of melody-infused heavy guitars, can you call it triple dual guitaring? I don't know, can you call it such a thing? But it's all there, lads, and if you like If These Trees Could Talk, as I mentioned earlier, especially The Bones of a Dying World, this album just triggered that straight away to me. Go check them out. Dan, Matt, Ryan and Mike, lads, you're so fucking humble, it's incredible, do you know that?
Thank you.
You know, this album that you've created is a fucking beast altogether, an absolute beast. Cannot wait to hear what comes out in the next album. I'll be keeping my ears peeled. And thanks for coming on the show, lads.
Thanks for having us.
So there you go, guys. That is The Depth Beneath Us. Check everything out on their Bandcamp page and check their Instagram, their Facebooks. Keep in touch with them. Everybody else, I'll see you on a couple of weeks' time. Thanks to Richie Dewig of the Metal Cell Podcast, who edits and produces the show, and we'll talk to you all later. Take care.